In today's video, we are going to implement the functionalities of this application. In previous video, we see how to design these interfaces. Interface 1, the sign-in interface, and also interface 2, that is dashboard interface. Today, we will see how we are going to implement these functionalities. So in this interface 1, so that means the sign-in interface, we are having two text field, two areas to get user inputs. The first one is a text field, another one is a password field. So once the user entered username and password and click on this sign in button, so then we need to check whether the user entered the correct username and password. If his username and password is correct, so then we are going to open this dashboard window to the user. That is what actually we need to implement here. So let's see how we are going to implement that part. So first I'm going to import this one because I already created this project during the last video. So therefore I'm going to import it. I'm going to file import project from zip and I'm going to browse it. Okay, so this is my one and I'm going to add it like this. So I'm having two interfaces here. First one is the sign in, another one is the dashboard. So if I run this project now, so you can see it's opening sign in window because this is the first interface I need to run in this project. So in here user can enter his username and password and he can click on this sign in button. Once he click, we need to check whether this username and password is correct. So therefore we need to add an event to this sign in button. So to add an event, so there are two options, two ways. The first one is we can double click on this button, so then we can automatically generate the code, the relevant code through the NetBeans IDE, or else we can select this button and we can go to properties window, and then from here we can go to the events tab, and from here we can select the event. So here the action performed event, I'm going to select this one, and here you can see there's a method called JButton1 action performed. Once I click on this method, it will automatically write the method for me like this. Now the first thing is, we discussed in last activity as well, the first thing is now the user is entered in this data to the UI. Now we need to get this data to our code. So how to do it? If it is a text field, we know that we can call to this text field and we can call to get text method. Then we can get this text into our code. So let's do that one first. So I'm going to create a variable here to save this username, and I'm going to call to this J text field, and I'm having only one J text field, so that is J text field 1, and then I'm going to call get text method. So then I can get the text of this J text field 1. The next one is the password. So I'm going to create another variable called password, and here the password is not a text field. So you can see here, once I click on this component, so it's a J password field. So therefore I'm going to call to this J password field, and now in this case you can see that get text method is not going to work because it's not text, it's a password field. So therefore we are having a different method here, so that is get password. So the get password, so this method returns char array. Okay, so that means a set of characters. So once I use this method, now you can see that we are getting an error here. That is because of the type incompatibility, because here we are creating a string variable, but once we call to this get password method, it will return char array. So that means we need to convert this char array into a string. So in Java, we are having a class, a string class. Under this string class, so we are having value of method. So you can see this value of method will get different types of data and convert those into a string. So in our case, we need to input char array and then we need to get the string. So here you can see it's also there under this method. So therefore I'm going to use that method now, and I'm going to convert this char array into a string, and then I'm going to save the password under password strings. Okay, so now we did that part. So username and password we uh, we saved under two variables called username and password. Now I need to compare, I need to check whether this username and password is correct. So how to do that one? So we need to connect with the database. So before that we need to have we need to create the database, because still we didn't create the database for this project. So I will go to exam control panel and I'm going to run MySQL service here. So if I'm getting the green color background here, so that means my service is successfully started. So now I'm getting it. So therefore I'm going to close this control panel. Now I'm going to the services tab and under databases. So you can see that MySQL server is there. But if you can't see the MySQL server, first you need to register it. So then you can see the MySQL server. Otherwise you can, so if it is already registered, then you can use it like this. So here I'm going to create a database now. Okay. So my database name is Activity03. Once I create the database, so you can see it like this. Now I can connect with the database. So when you are connecting with the database, so remember this connection is actually the NetBean is going to connect to the database. So the NetBean means the development environment is going to connect to the database. So in that case, we can use a high privileges account. But so in our case, we are having only the root, which is having high privileges. So therefore, I'm going to use the root account to connect NetBean to the database. So after that, you can see the link. So this link is generated. Now under that you can see the database is there, but we don't have any tables. So now I'm going to run some SQL commands to create these tables and to insert some data. So I already uploaded this. I already uploaded this query to the VLE, so you can download the query from the VLE, and after that you can also run this. You can also run this command and you can generate the table quickly. So okay, so this is the query. So I'm going to select all and then I'm going to paste it here. So after that I'm going to execute these queries by using this run SQL tool. So if you are getting a message like this, no errors occurred, so that means you successfully created and also you successfully inserted data to the database. So now here also you can see that we are having two tables here. One is book table and the other one is the user table. So the username password, so that is actually there under this user table. So now I'm again moving to my code. Okay, so now the database is ready. So now I need to connect my application to the database. So last week also we discussed how to connect a Java application to the database. So we are mainly having 6 steps. The first one is we need to import java.sql package, because that is not there in our development environment. So we need to import it first. So then we need to add the middleware. The middleware is what? that is JDBC driver. So we need to add the JDBC driver, and we need to register it with register in the Java runtime. Then only we can use it. So then we need to create a connection. How to create a connection? We are going to use the driver manager, and using driver manager we are going to create a connection, and then that connection will be stored under a connection object. So after that we are going to have the statement, because to run an SQL command, so we need to have a statement. So therefore we are going to use this previously established connection to create a statement. So then by using this statement we are going to run the SQL query. After that we are going to handle the results. So those are the 6 steps that we are actually need when you are going to connect a Java application to the database. The first one is you need to import java.sql package. Second one is add the JDBC driver and register it with the Java runtime. Third one is create the connection. Fourth one is create the statement. So then fifth, we need to have we need to run the SQL query. So then sixth one is we need to handle the results that we are getting from the database side. So we will do the first step. So that is we need to import this java.sql package. So here after so we can go to the top of the code, and after this package UI, so I'm going to import java.sql.*. So that means I'm going to import all the libraries here, and then I'm going to add the JDBC driver. So I can go to libraries here, and we don't have the JDBC driver. So I'm going to right click, add library, and then bin will display a set of options here, and from here I'm going to select MySQL JDBC driver, and I'm going to add it. So once I add it, so I need to register it with my environment or Java runtime. So therefore I'm going to use this class.forName method, and I'm going to pass the name of this JDBC driver is com.mysql.jdbc.driver, and here the D should be capital, and I'm going to terminate this one. Still we are getting an error message here, so that is because of unreported exception, class not found exception. We discussed about this one. We need to handle it. How to handle it? We can use a try catch here, and here I'm going to click on this button, and it's giving me an option to surround this statement with try catch. So I'm going to use that option here. So once I click on that one, so then Bean will automatically add this try catch block into my code. So here the class not found exception we are going to catch, but we discussed that if we need to catch other exception like SQL exceptions, so one short path is to remove this specific one and have the generic one, the exception class. So then we can handle other exceptions as well. So now I completed the second step, so that is adding the JDBC and registering it with the Java runtime. The next one is I am going to create the connection. So the connection is going to save under con object here. So therefore I am going to create a con object by using connection class, and then I am going to use the driver manager. And I'm going to call to get connection method. Okay, so the get connection will have we need to pass 3 parameters here: the URL, username, another one is password. So in my one, the username will be test user. We already created this user last time. And the URL, so URL I can get from the services tab, and this is the link I created from NetBeans to the database. So I am going to the properties window, and from here I'm going to use Ctrl C to copy this one, and here I'm going to paste it by using Ctrl V. And in this link you can see that we are having some additional information as well. So we discuss these are some additional information we are sending. So I'm going to remove this additional information. So now this is my link. Now I created the connection as well. After creating the connection, the next step is we need to create the statement. So before that, I will first create the query here. So that is what I'm going to run through the SQL. Sorry, not SQL. Through the statement. Okay. So this is my query. So now here I'm going to check whether this username and password is correct. So that means this user actually entered this username and password to the database. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check it. So that means I'm going to read this username and password, and I'm going to check whether these two are matching. Okay, so the user entered one and the database already exists one is matching or not. So that means we are going to do a kind of a read operation here. The read operation means we need to use select query. So now I am going to use it like this: select all from the table name. So here my table name is user. Select all from user. Okay, where select all from user where username equal, and username is a string, so therefore I'm using this one, and password. This is also an string. So now this will be the query. So I'm going to select data from users table where the username is equal to some value and password is equal to some value. But in this case, we need to pass the user entered username and user entered password. So then only we can check whether this user entered username and user entered password is there or not. And here we are using AND operator. You can see that. So that means both username and password should be matched. Then only we are getting a data from the database site. So now I'm going to add the user entered username by concatenating the username which has the user entered username and also the password. Okay, so now my query will be like this. So this is we are calling as a dynamic query, because now in this case you can see whatever user entered, it's going to connect, it's going to add into this query. So therefore this will be a dynamic query. So now I'm going to create the statement object, because I need to have a statement to run this query now. So I'm going to use the previous connection which actually saved under con object, and I'm going to use this create statement method. So now I create this statement. Once I create this statement, now I can execute this query. So since this is a select query, so we discussed that the select query will return rows and columns, because it will return a kind of a table. Okay, so in Java we are having a special class called result set to handle the output of a select query. So therefore I'm going to create a result set object here. So I will name it as RS, the name of the result set. Now I'm going to use this STMT and I'm going to execute this query. So in Java.SQL package, so we are having two types of methods. One is execute query, other one is execute update. So if you are going to run insert, delete, update, you will use execute update. If you are going to run select query, so we are going to use execute query. And this in this method you can see it's returning actually the result set like this. Okay, now the result set is actually again a kind of a table structure. It's having rows and also it's having fields. So when you are going to travel through this result set in Java, we are having a method called next. So if I call to rs.next, the meaning of that one is we need to access this rs object and we need to forward one row. Okay, so that means in the very beginning the cursor is there in the 0th position, and now we are asking to go to the first row. If the cursor can go to the first row, so that means if there is a first row, So then the cursor will move to that row and it will tell that okay, it's true, we can move. But if there's no any row, that means the cursor is in the 0th position and also that is the last position, and there's no any rows, so then it will return a false value. So then we can identify by using this true or false values whether we are having some records or not, whether we are having some records or not. So now I'm going to use that strategy to check whether we are getting a value or getting the data from the database side or not. So I'm going to use this if here, if rs.next, if rs.next. So that means if we got some data from the database side, we can actually execute this next method because we are having some records. If not, we are not having some records. So that means the user entered username and password is incorrect. So that is why we are not getting it. But if you are getting means the user entered username and password is correct. So if that is correct, so then we are going to display that dashboard to the user. So when you are going to display the dashboard, we already opened one interface as well. So that is this sign-in interface. We need to remove this signing interface from the user's environment. Then only we should open this dashboard environment. So now we will see how to do it. So we can call to dispose method. This dot dispose means the current window. That means we are working on this what window? Sign in window. This sign in window need to dispose first. Remove it from the user's environment, and after that now we need to have a dashboard, new dashboard to the user. So therefore I'm using new keyword and calling to the dashboard, and I'm going to create a new dashboard, and then I'm going to make this set visible. Okay, new dashboard, and I'm going to set visible. So now this is what we are going to do. First, remove the current interface, that means the sign-in interface, and remove all the resources associated with this interface, and then create a new dashboard and make it visible to the user. So that is what we did here. But if this username and password is incorrect, so then we need to show a message to the user. So in our activity, the message is this one. Okay, the entered username and password is incorrect. So this is the message we need to display to the user. So in this case, so we can have two ways. The one is you can use message box to display this message. So that means it will pop up a box and it will display that the username and password is incorrect, or else we can use a label here. So I'm going with the label approach. So I'm going to add a label here like this, and I'm going to add this text. The entered username and password is incorrect, and also I'm going to format it. So I will go to properties and I will change the font size first. So I will use times New Roman bold and 12, and again the font color, so I will make it red because this is a error message. Okay, so like this. Now the problem is, once we add the label like this, so when you are going to run the project, so very first case also you will see this message, but still the user didn't enter anything. So that means we should not display this message to the user. So if user is using some incorrect username and password, then only we should display this one. So therefore the very first case we need to hide this message. So this is how we are going to do it. So we are going to the source again, and we discussed that init component. So this method is going to load these components to the user's environment. So once this component loading task is completed, so now we are going to hide that label from user's environment. So this is how we are going to do it. We are going to call to this label first, this JLabel5 actually, okay, and we are going to call to this set visible method and make it false. So then we can hide this label from the user. So I will run it again now. So you can see now we are not seen. So that means we are not actually displaying this message to the user. So again I will come to this place. So here we are having if condition, okay. So then if this is correct, so then we are going to do these things, but if it is not correct, so then we need to display this message to the user. So in this case again I'm going to now in first case I hide this one, okay. So now I'm going to make it visible. So that means I'm going to show it to the user like this. So now my activity is completed. So I implement the functionality. So now I can run it and see whether it's going to work. Okay, so in my database you can see that I'm having one user called demo and the password is also same. So I'm going to use so I'm going to use that account here. Okay, we can see we can log in to the system, and if we are entering incorrect username and password, now you can see we are getting a message the entered username or password is incorrect. Now we are having some additional functionalities to implement here, that is the logout. Okay, logout button should trigger an event that close the dashboard window and open the sign in window, and also exit button should completely close the application. So those things also need to implement. So I will go to that part as well. So here in the dashboard window, so the logout, so I'm going to select this panel, and then I'm going to properties window, and from here event I'm going to select mouse clicked event here, and then I'm going to add some code lines under this one. Okay, so this is jpanel1 mouse clicked event. In this event what I'm going to do is logout. So first I'm going to remove this dashboard window, so by using this dot dispose, because this is the currently open one, so therefore I'm going to dispose it first, and I'm going to create new sign in window, and I'm going to make this visible to the user. Okay, so this is how we are going to do it. So now if I run this one again, so I can have the correct username and password, and I can click on the sign in, and you can see now the dashboard window is open to the user. So I'm going to click logout button, so then again that dashboard will be closed, and then open the sign in window like this. And other thing is, so this exit will exit from the application, that means we need to close it. So again I'm going to select this exit panel, and then properties, events, and here you can see mouse clicked event, and under that event body I'm going to add this dot dispose. So I'm going to close this window only. Okay, so now if I run this application again, so now if I click on exit, now you can see, okay, so we close the application. So now all the parts are completed, but there's an interesting thing that we need to discuss in this application. Okay, actually the application logic. So here once I run this one, so I can use the username and password to open the dashboard window. But if I use a username like this, single quote OR 1 equal 1 and hash mark, and I will click on this sign in. Okay, now you can see I got the dashboard. So that means what? I successfully logged in, but I didn't enter any correct username and password. But you can see I'm still getting the dashboard. So this is a kind of an attack that can be used to bypass these controllers. So these type of attacks we are calling these attacks actually the SQL injection attack. So the SQL injection attack means we are going to inject some malicious SQLs into our dynamic query. Okay, so we are running a query in this application. We are going to inject some SQLs into this query. So actually the malicious content. So in this case, what I did actually, I use single quote. Okay, so then I'm using OR and then 1 equal 1 and hash. Okay, so if you need to see what actually happening in the code level, so we will see it like this. So I'm having the query here. Okay, now I'm going to print this query to query like this. Okay, now I'm going to run the application again, and I'm going to add this single quote or 1 equal 1 hash like this. Now I will click on this sign in. Okay, so now you can see in this place what is the query we are actually going to run. Okay, select all from user where username is empty now, or 1 equal 1. After that we can see that hash character is there. So what's the purpose of this hash character in SQL level? So we are using to comment something. So now when you are running this query, actually what is going to happen now? We are going to comment this part. Okay, only we are running this part. Okay, you can see what is there in this part. Select all from user where username is empty. Okay, username is empty, we don't have any username. OR means what? That's a different logical operator. Okay, so if you are having an OR, if one condition is met, we are actually getting some data from the database side. The other condition here is 1 equal 1. That means it is always true. 1 always equal to 1. So therefore it's true. So therefore we are getting true here. So that means actually this query will return some values to our code. So if you are getting any values, so we are assuming that the user entered correct username and password. So that is why in our application logic we are having it like this. If we are getting any values, so then we are going to open the new window. So you can see now this logic is not actually correct. This means logic is correct, but you can see because of this logic we are having vulnerability in our code. So that means the SQL injection attacks can perform by using our application logic. So this is very simple SQL injection attack, but you can see our code is vulnerable for very simple SQL injection attack as well. So now we will change this logic little bit to make it little bit to avoid this kind of SQL injection attack. So how I'm going to change it? So in this case, now I'm not going to select all the things here. I'm going to select only the password from this query, and here I'm not passing username and password both. I will pass only the username. Like this. My query is like this: select password from user where username equals some value. So that means we are sending the username to the database and we are asking the password from the database, and also we are getting the user's password as well through the interface. So now in the code we are going to compare this user password with the database password. So this is how we are going to do it. So now once we execute this one, we will get the password. So that means we are having a result set. So now we are going to this result set and we are going to get the database password. So we are going to save this database password under db password variable, and this is how we are going to get this database password. We can call to this rs object, and we are having a method called get string. Okay, get string, and here we need to pass the field name. So here, according to this query, we are getting a field called password. Okay, so the password is actually saved under this password field. So therefore I'm going to pass this password field name, so then I can get this value. Now I'm having two passwords. First one is the user entered one, other one is the database output. So now I'm going to compare it. If db password equals to user entered password, so then I'm going to open this window, open the dashboard to the user. So that is how I change the logic now. Okay, if this password is if both passwords are matching, so then we are going to do this task. If not, again we are going to display. If not, again we are going to display this label to the user. Okay, so this is how I change the logic. Now I'm going to run the application again. Okay, so now I'm going to run the application again. Okay, so now I am going to use this SQL injection again here, or 1 equal 1 and hash. Okay, now you can see we can't log in now, but still we can perform some advanced SQL injection attacks here. So to do that, I will change my database query, database connection little bit, because we are having some MySQL level protections to multiple queries, but I will remove it by using a parameter here. Actually, sometimes we need to enable this one if we need to run some multiple queries. Allow multi equal true. Okay, so now I change this parameter, and now I am again running this project. So now in this case, so here I'm going to first I'm going to use single quote, and I'm going to use semicolon, and then I'm going to use a SQL command like this: delete from user and then hash. So this is again the username is like this in my case, so I'm going to click sign in. Okay, so now you can see here what SQL command I'm actually running here. Select password from user where username is empty. So then I'm going to terminate this statement. So that means now this was executed, and after that again I'm running delete from user. Delete from user means what? I'm going to delete all the data which are there in the user table. So we will go to the user table. We had 2 records there. Okay, now we don't have any records. What happened? So this SQL command executed. Okay, successfully executed. So that is why I don't have any data now. So that means if I run this kind of SQL injection attack, you can see my user table will be cleared. Okay, so then nobody can't access this application anymore. So that is what happened here. So I will add some I will add some data again here, because now we don't have any data. So I'm going to add some data now, because we deleted data through this SQL injection attack. So I'm going to add some data like this. Okay, now I'm having two records again. Now I'm going to try a different SQL injection attack now. I'm not going to delete, but I'm trying to log into this one. So how I'm trying to log in? So this another type of one. Okay, so I'm going to use uh, I'm going to use a single quote here and semicolon, and now I'm going to write run update user set password equal test where username equal demo. Okay, and then I'm going to comment the other parts. So now again I'm going to click sign in. So now you can see what is the query I'm going to run here. Select password from user where username empty. Okay, now we terminated this statement. Again we are running another one. Update user set password test where username is equal to demo. Okay, now in this case, so what we are doing is we are going to update the demo user's password with our own password. So if I successfully executed this command, so that means now I can log into my application by using demo as the username and password as the test. So we know that the previously password was demo. Okay, but now we change it. So we will see whether we can sign in to the application. Okay, so now I will run it again, and I'm going to use the username as demo and password as test. Yes, now we can log in. Okay, so we will go to the database and see what happened there. So now you can see the password is changed as test. Why? We successfully executed an SQL injection attack here. So these kind of things are happening because we are not implementing or creating our code in a proper way. So to avoid these SQL injection attacks, so in Java we are having a special class called prepared statement. So if you need to avoid these kind of SQL injection attacks, but in the very first case you can see that we had a very basic level of coding structure, and with that one, so the basic level of SQL injection attack also damage to our code. So damage means actually it bypassed our login controller and it logged into our system. And the next one is actually after that we changed our structure, so then the basic level SQL injection didn't work there, but still the advanced level ones worked. So but to run these kind of advanced level ones, actually we need to have some idea about the coding structure and the database structure. So that is why we are telling that we should not show our codes or database structures for the outside, because then the attackers will see how we actually structure this code and how the database is actually there, what are the table names, what are the field names. So then they can actually create this kind of attack. So therefore as a good practice, so we should not display our source codes to the others, because then they can also come up with different kind of attacks. But in this case, so we saw that since we are not using the correct method when we are creating the database connection, not database connection, when we are running the SQL statements, SQL commands, so we are still, our code is still vulnerable for SQL injection attacks. So now we will see what is the correct approach that we should use. The correct approach is, in Java we are having a class called prepared statement. So we should use this prepared statement if you need to avoid these SQL injection kind of attacks. So now I'm going to change my code. So here, not statement class. Now I'm going to use prepared statement class. Okay, so this is the name of the class, prepared statement, not statement, prepared statement. So I will use pstmt as the object. Now it's not create statement, it's prepare statement. Okay, so now the method is con dot prepare statement. Okay, so then here we need to pass query as well. So here you can see that the parameter here, SQL statement. Okay, so that is the parameter. So here I'm going to use my SQL statement is SQL queries query. So I'm going to pass this prepared statement method this query. Okay, so after that, now I'm having the prepared statement. Once I create this prepared statement, the way we are creating the SQL statement is also different in a prepared statement method. We are not passing any values directly to the query. So we are just passing these values as parameters. So the parameters, the question mark indicate a parameter. And if you are having, for example, think that if you are having 3 question mark, so that means this will be the first parameter, this will be the second parameter, this will be the third parameter. Okay, so but in my case, so we are having only one parameter here, username. So I will have one question mark here. Now I created the prepared statement. Now I need to add some data into these parameters. So this is how we are going to add it. I'm going to call to this pstmt object, and we are having set string, set method. So it means it can be a set string, or it can be a set int. Likewise we can add it, but here is the string. Okay, set string, and we need to pass which parameter we are going to set here. So I'm going to set the first parameter, and what is the value we need to set? I'm going to set it with the username. Okay, and if you are having many parameters, then we need to set it like this. Okay, here we are having only one parameter, so therefore I'm going to set the first parameter with the username. This set string is actually a pre-built method, already implemented method. So that means through this kind of methods we are going to do the sanitization. So we discussed about the importance of sanitization, because we can remove some malicious or harmful content from our content from the user inputs before use it. Okay, so through if you are using these kind of methods, pre-built method, so then we are actually doing the sanitization kind of things as well before adding those things to our query. So now I'm going to use this pstmt object. Now I don't need to pass the query, because when I'm preparing the statement, I actually added the query, so therefore I don't need to pass it again. So now the code is like this: prepared statement pstmt con.prepare statement. I'm going to pass the query, and here query, you can see that we are not passing any values to the query, so we are passing those as parameters. And once I prepare the statement, now I need to pass the values to these parameters. I'm using pstmt and set string method, and I'm telling which parameter I'm passing. Here the first parameter, that is username, and after that I'm going to use pstmt execute query method. So then again I will get the result set, and I can execute the code like this. Now I will run it again. So I'm using demo and I change it into test. So you can see now I can successfully log in. But now we will try to execute SQL injection attack again. Okay, so now I'm using single quote, semicolon, and then I'm going to again run this one. Delete from user hash. So now again I'm going to run this SQL injection attack on this application. Now I'm going to click sign in. Okay, now I'm going to the database again, and I'm going to view data. You can see nothing changed now. So we will see what happened here. Okay, so now so we will see what happened here. So I'm going to remove this part from here. So now before execute, we will see what is the query now. So in this case, actually, since we are going to pass this value to this set string, and set string is a pre-defined method, so we are going to remove this content, so malicious content from this query. So therefore once we are going to execute this query, so it will remove this unwanted part, and after that only it's going to run this query. So that is why this SQL injection is not going to work here, because the prepared statement class is already actually implement to avoid these kind of SQL injection attacks. So now our application is working like this. Okay, so like this it's going to work. So now that is all about this activity. So here we actually other than the activity functionalities, we discussed how to implement a very secure code, how to avoid this SQL injection attack. So in previous in future cases, so we are actually going to use this prepared statement, because this is the recommended approach to approach when you are actually implementing some Java database connectivities. So that means when you are running some SQL statements, so therefore we are going to use this prepared statement. Okay, thank you.